Decision making helps us to anticipate conditions occurring while executing a program. The flowchart here tells us that we arrive at an expression, and based on the Boolean result which is extracted from the expression, we get the result as true or false. And based on this, we can decide an action to be taken. Let us try to solve some examples to get a clear view on this. The problem definition here states that write a program to print the number if it is even, that is, it is divisible by 2. Otherwise, do not print anything. So let us start with a number to be taken as an input from user. We need to perform some arithmetic operations on the number. That's why we are converting the number or the input to integer format. Then comes the if condition. Now here the condition is num mod 2, which means that we are trying to divide the number by 2 and fetch the remainder. If the remainder is 0, means the number is divisible by 2, and that's why it is an even number. So colon marks the start of the if block, and if the condition is true, we are going to print the number. Let us execute this code. 4 is an even number. Entering 3 is not going to print anything because 3 is not divisible by 2 and there is no block written over here which tells us that perform a task when the condition is false. Now the next example checks whether the number is even or odd. Here is the code. If num mod 2 returns 1, which means it is not divisible by 2, then it is an odd number. Whereas if num is divisible by 2, then the expression would return a 0 and Boolean of 0 is false. Hence the else block gets executed. So when we enter 3, we get odd. Entering 4 gives us even. Let us now see another example which states that we have to simulate the toss a coin game and compare the outcome with the guess made by the user. It also says that user should either guess the correct value, like either heads or tails. And if user enters some arbitrary value, then the program must return an invalid input. We will start with importing a random module. Random module has many functions for generating random outcome. We will start with defining a list. On line number 3, you can see this is the list of all the possible choices. Then we will accept the guess as an input from the user and store it in the variable guess. Then using the choice function from the random module, we will try to generate a random outcome from heads or tails. So here we are passing the list options to the choice function to generate a random value out of these two. And the random outcome is stored in the variable outcome. Then we will first validate our input from user using the membership operator here. In operator, we are going to check whether the input stored in variable guess is present in our list options or not. If the guess is an invalid value, then the program will directly jump to the else part because in operator will return a false and it will go to the else part, printing the output as invalid input. If the input is valid, then let us write the code. If the input is valid, then guess and outcome are compared, and based on the comparison, if guess and outcome are matching, then the result is printed as won the game. If the guess and outcome are not matching, then the result is printed as you lost. Here we are writing an if-else block nested inside another if block, and hence it is called as nested if-else. Let us now simulate another game called as 7 up 7 down. The rules of this game state that a player starts the game with an initial amount of ₹1000. So here we have created a variable AMT with the value as 1000. The next step says that generate a random value between 1 to 14 and store the value in the variable outcome. So here we have defined the variable outcome, and we are going to use the function called as random int belonging to the random module, which generates a random integer between the mentioned values. So here we have mentioned the start point as 1 and end point as 14. So any number between 1 to 14, including 1 and 14, is generated randomly. In this example, there are two conditions which needs to be checked. The first condition is if the outcome is equal to 7, then player hits a jackpot and wins 1 crore. If outcome is less than 7, player loses the amount by the randomly generated outcome into 100. So if the random value is, for example, 5, the player will lose 500 rupees. If outcome is greater than 7, the player will earn the amount which is equal to the outcome into 100. For example, if the outcome is 9, player earns 900 rupees. So let us try to simulate these three conditions using if-else. Here we are clubbing multiple instructions into one if-else block using the keyword elif. So the first condition is outcome is greater than 7. So outcome into 100 is added to the amount. If outcome is less than 7, then outcome into 100 is subtracted from amount. And else will be obviously the last condition, that is outcome equal to 7. So in that case, the user or the player hits a jackpot and wins 1 crore. And at the end, we are printing the final amount. Let us execute and see. And here we have won 900 rupees. And that's why our final amount is 1000 plus 900, that is 1900. This is called as if-else ladder.